I'm a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, and I started that about 10 years ago. I'm licensed through the state of Virginia, and I started working with squirrels, groundhogs, and bunnies. And then 3 years ago, somebody brought me a box of baby possums because they don't usually just come in ones or twos. Moms can have up to 13, so it's not unusual to get 8, 9, 12, 14 possums in one batch. People find them when they get hit on the side of the road, and then they check the pouch and bring me the babies. So that was pretty much the beginning of my love affair with possums.
And first of all, is Sweet Pea your guest? Is Sweet Pea purring, growling, cooing? What's happening there?
She is just sort of snuggled in. Her nose gets cold, apparently, so she likes to hide her little nose. She isn't really doing much of anything. They're pretty quiet animals. She's just hanging out.
Do possums like bite or scratch or claw, or they seem like very domesticated to me? I would have never thought of that.
That's a great question. People tend to think that they're vicious, aggressive animals because generally when people see them, they're in, your garbage can or your garage, and you approach them, they puff up, they hiss, they show their 50 extremely razor sharp teeth. So they definitely can bite. But what most people don't realize is that they're actually really docile animals. They want to be left alone. They want to just forage for food and do what they're going to do. They're not, looking to cause problems. So they're actually pretty docile. Now, anything with 50 teeth obviously can bite, but they generally don't. They don't make much of a noise. They don't have a smell. They're actually very cat-like. If they're not eating or sleeping, they spend their time grooming.
Now, I wanted to just note, you came into our world. One of our favorite people on the planet, Kimmy, told us, you may remember on the show a little bit ago, that she found a possum on the side of the road. And we're like, of course you did. And then she's like, and then I found the possum rescue. And we're like, of course you did.
Of course you did.
And that's why we're talking to you this morning, because Kelly and I we didn't think of that as a thing that happens. Do you get that from a lot of people when they're like, you're rehabilitating wildlife? Like, when you talk about it on the macro scale, totally makes sense why it should happen. But
right.
Do you constantly just surprise people in your life all the time?
Yes, absolutely. People think, oh, you rescue wildlife. People think about hawks, eagles, owls, foxes, bears, the sexy animals. And that's why I love doing education with possums. Sweet Pea is one of 5 education possums that I have. Get a little face up there. Aww. And people have these preconceived notions about possums. Again, they're vicious, they're aggressive, they're dirty, they're disease-ridden. They're going to kill your kids. All of these things. They carry rabies. All of these things that are just not true about possums. So I love doing education with them because the first time that somebody reaches out and pets them and feels how soft they are and sees their little faces and their little fingers and learns about them, I don't think you can really look directly into the eyes of any animal and not understand it, not want to learn more about it. So it's definitely fun. I have a big guy, Stuart, who is the most well-known in the Fredericksburg area. He's a big dude, and I love just taking him places randomly. We'll show up at PetSmart or Petco or Lowe's or one of the restaurants where you can bring pets, and just the expression is fabulous.
So with Sweet Pea and Stuart, those are your pets? Those are not going to be released back into the wild, or what do you do? I mean, how do you figure out which ones you keep and which ones kind of go back in the wild? Because Sweet Pea is like loving life, sitting there being petted. And I can't imagine, on a cold winter night, how Sweet Pea is going to do going back into the wild.
Right. That's a great question also. As a wildlife rehabilitator, the goal is always get them back out into the wild. That's what we do why we do what we do is we take in orphan, injured animals and then rehabilitate them so that they can go back into the wild. Occasionally, something happens where they are not able to be released. In Stuart's case, he can't be released because he has no hip sockets, which is just a congenital type thing. He can walk, he can run, he can climb. He doesn't because he's lazy, but he can. But we don't want him going back into the wild to kind of perpetuate those sort of wonky genes. He would be at a disadvantage when he's got to forage for food and things like that. Sweet Pea cannot go back into the wild. She actually came to me from Spotsylvania County Animal Control over the summer with a litter of 13. She was number 14, which is amazing in itself because moms only have 13 nipples. So how this one particular mom was carrying around 14 babies is a bit of a mystery itself. But on occasion...
That's 700 teeth, by the way.
It's a lot of teeth. Never thought of it like that. It is a lot of teeth. So every now and then, one possum in a litter will be a jerk to the other ones, and I had never seen it happen until this year. And what happened with Sweet Pea, I'll see if I can show you, is one of her siblings chewed off her tail. So she... and the other female I have is a little nubby butt as well. I love my little nubby butt girls. So their tails are prehensile. So they use them as a fifth limb in the wild. They use them to carry things. They use them for balance. So if she, and I'm sure it happens in the wild. So if she was to go back into the wild, she wouldn't be able to make herself gather bedding and nesting materials. She wouldn't be able to make herself a nice warm bed, or a little, hi, baby girl, a little place to raise her baby. She wouldn't be able to use it for balance when they climb on trees. People think that they sleep hanging from their tails. That's a myth. But they do use them to grip things and for balance. So that's why she is not releasable. And she's also ridiculously friendly at this point. I knew when she was really young that she obviously wasn't going to be releasable. So I've spent a lot of time carrying her around in my shirt, getting her to bond with me, getting her used to people, getting pet. So I use her for small programs right now with only just a few people because she is just getting used to being, oohed and awed and adored. It's a rough life if you're an education possum here at Awesome Possumz.
Karen, what do you feed possums? Dog food, cat food, garbage? What do you feed possums?
Well, I try to keep their diet pretty close in as much as possible to what they would get in the wild. So they get fruits, vegetables. Of course, I give them high quality dog and cat food. But because they are pampered, they get yogurt, which is great for the calcium. Possums need have a higher calcium requirement than a lot of other wild animals. So again, fruits, vegetables, they do get frozen mice, which grosses a lot of people out, but in the wild, that's what they would be eating. I purchase cockroaches online. Not many people go out of their way to acquire cockroaches.
Like on Amazon?
No, there's actually cockroach breeders out there. There's mealworm breeders. Yeah. There's, people that obviously raise mice and rats and things like that. There's this whole undercurrent that you just have no idea how weird my life has gotten in the last 3 years. So, they get a variety of things. Like us, they get tired of eating the same thing. The nice thing about possums is they are omnivores. I call them everythingivores. So they get, the occasional little cheese ravioli treat. They love dried fruit. I get them vegetable chips, the dried beets, and it's fun to watch them experiment and see. They have their likes and their dislikes. Stuart will not eat a carrot. I don't care what you do to it. He will not eat it. One of this little girl, well, she loves everything. Her roaches, I think, are her favorite. If you dip them in yogurt, even better. So they all have their likes and their dislikes, and their personalities are really funny. And people don't realize that they have. I mean, all animals have personalities.
Karen, how do you raise money?
I do. Well, I charge a program fee. So when we go to schools, community groups, businesses, things like that, I do charge a program fee for an hour presentation. I have a bunch of crazy, crazy fun things that I sell at different events. Like Stuart and I are going to be at the Fredericksburg Pet Show coming up the November 14th and 15th down here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So I'll have my mugs and mouse pads and prints and T-shirts. I have a bunch of crazy animal-related socks that I sell, just all different sorts of things. I work with a lady on Etsy who crochets me possum scarves and little crocheted possums. And in the spring, it's great. I have people who will either make monetary donations, or they will, give me gift cards to Walmart or the local grocery stores. I have people that will bring me a variety of different things. And I'm also affiliated with a wildlife rescue in Northern Virginia. And so I take some animals from them because I still do bunnies and squirrels, not just possums. So I have a wide variety of things. I'm doing a fundraiser right now called Operation Possum Palace. I'm getting our education family got a little out of control this year. I went from just Stuart and Bobby Sue to Stuart, Bobby Sue, Sweet Pea came along, and Bruiser and Uncle Fester. So we went from 2 to 5 in a season, which is a little crazy. My husband's not thrilled about it. But they're really susceptible to cold in the winter. So I don't like to leave my guys out in outdoor cages during the winter, even though they're big, beautiful cages. So I started Operation Possum Palace to raise money to get a 12 by 20 barn that will be insulated and finished. So Bruiser and Uncle Fester and Sweet Pea will have a place to go for the winter. It'll have indoor-outdoor access. Possums love to run on those big 4-foot tall cat wheels. So once we get the barn, build the barn, insulate the barn, then of course we have to furnish the barn. So if you go on Awesome Possumz on Facebook, it's Possums with a Z, you'll see the fundraiser. So long answer to your short question. But Kelly, I wanted to get back to you on a question that you asked that I didn't actually answer. Are they pets? No. It is illegal in the state of Virginia and most states to have wild animals as pets. So obviously I have a license as a wildlife rehabilitator. In order to have and display education animals, I also had to get a permit through the state of Virginia and a federal license through the U.S. Department of Agriculture in order to be able to do education programs with them. So great question. And I just realized I did not answer that. Sorry.
I'm kind of at a loss for words because you just covered a lot of ground. And
I did. Sorry.
I have one.
I cram as much as possible in my 20 minutes. And
this may be the most educational thing we've done on the show in quite some time.
Aww.
Take that, NPR. Haha. But I have one final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Are things like Tiger King, right, where we see like Carol Baskin, who has like a quote unquote animal rescue? Is that sort of stuff helpful for what you do to like just shine a bigger light on rescuing animals, or clearly it was kind of a sideshow? So does that make what you do harder when people think about the work you're doing versus what we've seen on like reality shows about big animals and wild animals?
That's a really good question. I've never actually been asked that before. I've never really thought about it. Obviously, the more exposure to, teaching people that there are animal rescues out there is most important. So in a general in a broad term, just letting people know that there are animal rescues out there obviously is helpful. It is sort of a sideshow. I had several people recommend, oh, you got to watch Tiger King. I personally couldn't get into it. I don't deal well with the drama and the reality shows. So it's personally not for me. I know there's people out there that love it, but I don't like anything that makes them seem, despite the fact that I'm, cuddling a possum right now, they're not pets. They are still wild animals. One of you had mentioned the fact that I think it was Kelly, that she seems pretty domestic. There's a difference we have to keep in mind between domesticated animals, which means that they have been tame essentially for hundreds of years. Possums are not domestic. They may be tame, like Sweet Pea and my other education animals, but they're certainly not domestic animals. And to me, it's all about how the animal is treated. Is Tiger King educational? I think it's more exploitive. That's just me.
I think there's a lot of words you can call Tiger King, but education is a stretch.
Exactly. Education to me is the wildlife programs. I'm a sucker for all of those emergency vet programs on Nat Geo and Animal Planet and all of that. To me, that's education. I know there's some rescue programs and things out there. So, anything that, I guess the word I was looking for is anything that sensationalizes animals. And feeds on the drama it's not really about the animals. It's about crazy people doing things with animals. So I was hedging a little bit because, I don't want the hate mail. Oh, I love Tiger King and you're horrible. But, it's just, I'm more about using the animals for education. My husband says I pimp my possums. I say I market my marsupials, tomato. But it's about the education for me.
And your husband has less to worry about with 7 little possums versus 7 tigers. I'm not saying Carol Baskin killed her husband. I'm just saying if she did, possums would be a way harder way to do it.
I don't know, Tommy. They do have a lot of teeth.
They do. And they do eat carrion. I'm just throwing that out there. But I would definitely need more than the 5 that I have currently. Although I have this year alone taken in over just about 170 animals total. About 120 of those were possums.
Wow.
So at one point I had 35 juvenile possum. I think they probably could have done the job. Nothing eats like a juvenile possum.
I've always
insane.
said that.
It's insane. So, yeah.
Karen Brace from Awesome Possumz with a Z. Check them out on Facebook. Hopefully you can support her efforts. And thank you to Sweet Pea for being our special guest today, too.